Hello, magandang umaga. Okay, we'll start our program. Good morning to everybody. Welcome to the fifth staging of our Usapang Pagkain, PCAFI-han. Project spearheaded by PCAFI and led by our president, Mr. Danny Fausto. Today, we will be discussing two important matters. Number one, the agri-performance of Philippine agricultural exports. What's wrong with it and what are the solutions to some of the concerns? And number two, hand in hand with that, we will be discussing matters on supply chain concerns. Okay? And together with that, digitalization. We'll have some initial talks about it. This is a follow-through of the several commodity discussions we've had in our first four stagings. Just to name a few, we discussed rice, sugar, pork, chicken, seaweeds, even water. The very precious commodity water was given discussion. Bamboo was also discussed. And today, as I mentioned, dito tayo sa exports and supply chain matters. We have our experts today led by President Danny Fausto, Vice President Ernie Ordonez. Our keynote speakers, key speakers for this morning, we have Mr. Tomas Medina of Brands Exports. We have Mr. Rene Pamintuan of a logistics group, Tuco. And we have Mr. Rod Bioco of PhilMais, the Chairman Emeritus of PhilMais. We also have our PCAFI members with us. We have Mr. Roger Navarro of PhilMais and Mr. D.V. Savellano and Butch of the Bamboo Movement. Online, Butch Madarang of the Bamboo Movement. Online, we have Mr. Arsenio Toto Barcelona for vegetables. We have Mr. Ruben C. of PhilFoodX and Mr. Philip Young, also a big player in the exports of agricultural commodities. Now, I'd like to acknowledge our friends from media. Number one, we have SMNI, represented here by Ms. Sheena Torno, lead reporter of SMNI. Welcome, ma'am, and to your team. Welcome to this gathering. We have Business Mirror representative Ms. Andrea San Juan, Manila Times representative Ms. Belia Carriazo. And those online, our friends from media, we have Jed Macapagal of Malaya, Othel Campos, as usual, with her pineapple signature from Manila Standard, Jordan Lagare from Inquirer, Jose Ingles, Marita Cabral from DZRH, if I'm not mistaken, Janet De La Cruz and Melody Agiba, our Suki. We have Mary Ann Bastasa, Radyo Pilipinas, and Chris Abad, also from Radyo Pilipinas. UNTV, we have Dominic Alejandro, Ray Pelayo, Ruben and Aundi. All right. And from ABS-CBN, we have Mr. Joey Carpio. Sir, welcome. So, again, let's focus on the interaction with media. No? This is very important. Kaya focus tayo sa ating mga discussions this morning. Welcome to our gathering. And now at this point, I'd like to call on our President, Mr. Danny Fausto, for his welcome remarks and to introduce our important topics for this morning. Mr. President, Danny Fausto.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doy. We missed Danessa Rivera of Philippine Star. No? Let's say Philippine Star. Saka si suki natin. Sir, Jerdis Manahan. Yes. Welcome. And again, thank you to our friends from media for coming over. This is our fifth edition of PCAFI-han, Usapang Pagkain. And I'd like to thank those in the virtual joining us virtually, and also these people here on a face-to-face. And we chose this fifth edition before the end of the year as the most important one because this involves the very essence of how we grow our agri-sector, which is export. And with us, we have our members, the president of the Philippine Exporters Service Provider and Consolidators, Mr. Tomas Medina. Also to segue also is our champion for supply chain and logistics, Mr. Rene Pamintuan, and for agricultural digitalization, bringing us to Agri 4.0. If we are in Agri 1.0, I hope we can jump to 4.0 with the presence of our member here, the chairman of the PhilMais, the Confederation of the Philippines, Mr. Rod Bioco. I'd like to thank them. They will be expounding more on the challenges that we are facing on the export. As you know, we've been lagging behind export, and everybody knows about this. And we compared to the other ASEAN countries, before we are concentrating on two major countries, which is US and Western Europe. We are forgetting about Central and Eastern Europe and Latin America. Now, these US and Japan has been taken over already by China and ASEAN as our major export. And why do we need export? Because we need money to pay off our imported products, especially about more than almost 80% of our imported products goes to our inputs, our fuel, our raw materials like fertilizer and chemicals for our farms and our manufacturers, and also exports for our labor. We need to pick up our labor. You know, our labor has been especially in the farm sector that's the fault of the people that lost jobs during the pandemic on the resort areas, on our tourism and our service sector. They went to the farm sector. But the problem is productivity. Before, our productivity is about 46,000. Now it's down to 35,000. From a 9.7 million laborers in the farm sector, it went up to 11.4 million. And despite this increase of 1.7 million in the labor sector going to the farm sector, agricultural sector, our productivity went down. We are talking of food security, but food security that only involves production. It involves productivity and making sure that our farmers make money. And to make money, we need the market. We need to develop our production. And to develop our production, how can we rely on our local market, wherein our local market is defined as lower income. You know, compared to the industries that we have about 170,000 income for our industries, and about 120,000 for our service sector, and our agricultural sector is at 35,000. So while people went to the agricultural sector, our value-added output for the agriculture sector went down. From 440 billion in the first quarter of 2020, it went down to 417 billion in the June of 2022, quarter to quarter. So while people are moving to the agricultural sector, they move to the agricultural sector, but the income goes down. Now, how do you now sell to this kind of domestic market? We need our export to be able, as I said, to pay for our imports because we are being import dependent. And there will be no production because the domestic market is defined with low income and poverty. So there is no purchasing power. So you need to go to export. And what is component of that export? Foreign direct investment. Why are sometimes China is a problem? The medium corporation went out of China. Anong pumunta sa atin? Walang nagpunta sa atin. Ang nagpunta lang sa atin, Pogo. Everybody went to the ASEAN except the Philippines. Why? Because of our policies. And they will discuss. Our speakers will be discussing that in more detail, especially our practitioners, our export consolidators, which is very important for our SMEs. Because he's supporting the SMEs. He consolidate to make sure that one container load will be composed of 2 or 3 or 4 exporters in one container, because an SME cannot fill up one container. And this is the role of the consolidator. And the supply chain problem, which we'll discuss by our supply chain expert and logistics expert. So this is a very important thing. This is the way to increase our production, because if we have the market, sasabihin, bakit tayo mag-export if we need to support our local needs? We're getting it wrong, because if we have export, we have more income, we have more labor, we increase the income of our people, our laborers, so they have the capacity to buy and increase our production. Without market, there will be no production. So let's go export. But we are beset by so many problems in export. And Mr. Medina will explain it to us why. And we ask the media to ask questions regarding this, also the supply chain, and also the digitalization, which will support all of the problem like export. So the export is the banner. Without the foreign direct investment, normally the practice is our neighbors have investors, foreign investors. They are the ones that are exporting. So if we do not have foreign investment, we will not because these international companies are the ones that are exporting. But nobody is coming to the Philippines. Why? Then they will explain it to us. And how many products are we exporting? Limited. We have no export diversification. At least now, dati 70 lang ang ating countries. Now, in 2000, nasa 200 countries na. But we are still stuck with a few items, few products, and we have never changed. As a matter of fact, our champion products, coconut and so on, they do not get the backup of budget. They do not get the budget. And what is now? That in other countries, they have 2 to 5% of their exports allotted for advertising and promotion. They join trade missions, they have exhibits, advertising and promotion. As I've mentioned in the last, if I recall, 3rd edition of our PCAFI-han, we have a problem of seaweeds. 30% of our fisheries and aquaculture is seaweeds. And by 2023, next year, there will be a review in the United States of our seaweeds. They are trying to remove carrageenan as an organic product. If we lose that market, that's what happened to us in coconut oil. We lost the export in US because of the lobby group. They will be doing the same at our carrageenan. And carrageenan is being produced, or seaweed is being produced, 72% in the ARMM and in Zamboanga Peninsula, which is the poorest of the poor of our society, of our people. And if we will not protect that, protect through advertising, defend our seaweeds, then we lose and we have a problem in Mindanao. So these are things that perhaps there's so many things that we can discuss, but I should give the table to our speakers because this is important. Export. This is the key to the development of agricultural sector. Export. It produce market. It develop, increase the income of our laborers. It increase our production. We have economies of scale. There's so many things that can be done because of export. But no budget is given to the DTI for our advertising promotion, especially in the agricultural sector. We can no longer rely on the Department of Agriculture because the downloading and more money is in the LGUs. Number one responsibility of the LGUs under Section 17 of the Local Government Code is for the LGU to develop our agricultural sector. But what is happening? Perhaps the Department of Agriculture should make a matching grant, like what we do in Rotary. You have a matching grant. You put in 100 million, I put in 100 million. Let's develop the agricultural sector. That's the one way of doing it. And perhaps there's a restructuring of the Department of Agriculture. Instead of focusing to nasa banner program, we focus on on functions, value chain. Anyway, this talking more, we can answer questions later. And so I'll now pass on to our moderator to begin the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Danny Fausto. At this point, I'll call on our Vice President for External Relations and the current President of the Water Security Movement Incorporated. Please welcome Mr. Ernie Ordonez.
Good morning. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. I talked to Danny about today and it's exports. But I told Danny, perhaps we should have just a short soundbite on the trade balance. Okay, because as we stall on exports, we increase so much on imports. So much our trade balance has gone crazy. Now, I'll show on the screen just some bites. I would like to just do it very fast and you can follow through after the press con because I want to do exports. You got to see the whole picture, exports and imports. Can you please flash my slide? If you cannot see the slide, there will be a statement, one-page statement that talks about this, no? But I'll be can you please try to expand it? Okay. Alam mo, trade balance is import-exports, di ba? Okay. Exports natin dapat lumakas, right? Hindi lumalakas. Imports naman, grabe ang increase. Trade balance has gone crazy, right? Okay. So basically, what you see here is that you have getting worse and worse, all right? So basically, what do we have to do? We have to increase exports and the imports that are smuggled, that are substandard, we gotta decrease that. Dalawa lang. Hit the exports and also move on the imports. But today it's exports. But you gotta know that imports is the other side. And I'll talk briefly on that, but that's not the main topic. Okay. Now, what does the committee want? No, basically, we wanted not anti-smuggling oversight committee because there's so much coming in. We can stop that through smuggling. And I'd like to let you know that we succeeded before when we cut smuggling by 31 and 25% because customs is like a kingdom. Nobody watches them. At that time, they could not do that because they meet every month reporting to the president. And we were there, private secretary was there with the others, right? It was 25% decrease. The first time they abolished us, we caught big fish. Mga kaibigan nila, kaya abolish. Tinanong ko bakit, nahuli ang big fish. They resurrected us, then they abolished us again because we were catching even bigger fish, 31%, right? And the second one, of course, is that the quarantine and health and safety. You know, as Tom Medina might mention later, you know, very strict with our people. Imports violate our rules and they come in. So you can really cut the imports, right? Okay, by having the border controls, etc. No? Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. Okay, actually, you'll just get this later. We just want to say that in addition to banning these bad imports, right, smuggled, substandard, etc. No, okay, we got to strengthen our people. In other words, if we don't strengthen, we'll continue losing. But the problem is that the money for us is so little, sinabi nga ni Danny and the others, dinagdag, pero yung konti, nananakawan pa tayo. How do you stop that? Okay, this is the last slide, no? 2 points lang yan eh. Border controls, make it like other countries, and secondly, help us fight. But you cannot help us fight if the money for us is being corrupted, right? Nakalagay dito, number one, inabolish nga yung smuggling, di ba? Gumanon na naman yung smuggling. Ito naman, inabolish yung private sector. We used to review it even in the provinces. Even in the provinces. Now they abolish it. Nagwala, okay? Nagwala. There's 22 billion pesos. I mean, if Napoles is 10 billion in 1 year, this is 22 billion. If Napoles is 10 billion in 10 years, which media covers, that 20 billion in 1 year is not being covered. This is big time, right? Okay. And it's unliquidated and questionable. So all we want there is to restore the private sector monitoring. We go back to province, we look at it. Yun lang po. So in summary, exports. As you do exports, the imports, okay, can be lessened. The increase will be there, but lessened. We'll take out the substandard, the smuggled, etc. And we will give our people the opportunity to grow. Sabi nga ni Danny, they don't give money for advertisement. They don't even give us money to increase our productivity because it's getting stolen. So for that, we will need this private sector monitoring because you cannot trust the government bureaucracy sometimes. They're in cahoots, right? So we need that. Thank you very much. So it's exports, 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 but we have to understand that for trade balance, it's also cut that imports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ernie Ordonez. Thanks for giving us a balance on the trade imbalance, no? And focusing on smuggling and unliquidated 22 billion. That's a big amount in 2020. Before I call on our key speakers, recognize ko lang yung dumating pa nating media friends. Val Gonzalez of DZRH, and then Kathy Cruz of Katipunan Channel, and DWL representatives Juvie de Guzman and Victor Salonga. Okay, at this point, let's start our discussions on exports, supply chains, and digitalization. I'll call on the first speaker. He is Mr. Tom Medina of Brands Exports Incorporated. Please welcome Mr. Tom Medina. You have the floor.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Doy, and President Danny, and of course, Vice President Ernie. Ernie, maraming salamat for a nice segue to the discussion. My company is one of at the forefront of what you call export consolidation, and we have an association called the Philippine Export Service Providers and Consolidators Association. Our group composed of more than 300 active consolidators, mixes different MSME products into one container for a single buyer. So we are not forwarders in the sense that we put in different products for different people in one container, just like how a reverse function of a balikbayan box does. But we only serve one client for every container or air shipment that we do. And this is the main function of consolidators. So in talking about the exports, let me share this with you, and maybe some of you have requested me to touch on a little bit with the challenges that we are facing. First and foremost, kagaya ng shinare ni Kadani, exporting means to create that balance of trade. And unfortunately, we're now ranked number 5 in ASEAN, with Singapore at the top and the other top 6. No? So isa na lang notch, bababa pa tayo. The same way that our coconut exports have been, our coconut positioning is now number 3, if not going to be number 4 by next year. So para sa amin po, if the government says 99.5% or 98% of total enterprises belong to MSMEs, and only about 3% are actually, or 2%, a little bit over 2% are with the large corporations. It is also mentioned by statistics quoted in most of the trade data na that 3% contributes actually 60% of total revenue of enterprises. And the 99% only contributes 30%. So that is a very, very strong and striking imbalance with regards to the positioning and sustainability of the MSMEs. Now, as Kadani also mentioned, we have been earmarking for more exports. But why is it that it is not growing? Simply because the ease of doing business in the Philippines has not been addressed thoroughly. In the last DTI and DA and other multi-agency fora that we have attended, we have been trying to solve the issues of not only supply chain, but even with DA on the supply of the raw materials and other issues confronting us. We have found out that there is an issue of convergence and congruence. Convergence on the policies and congruence of programs. Meaning, most of the government agencies now, just like what Kadani said, lacks the promotional efforts on our products, no? And so what happens is that even if somebody came up with a very nice idea, say for example, one of the products been carrying is a pure calamansi without pulp and sugar, nobody's been highlighting it. And so what happens is that it doesn't get to where it should be. You see, and we have salted egg and we have salted egg potato chips, which has caught up with the market, but nobody has been highlighted because there is no money behind. And sadly though, our salesmen at the forefront of government agencies have not learned their lessons on how to properly market and reach out what products should go to overseas Filipinos and what could possibly go to mainstream markets. We have been largely at the forefront of private labeling and bulk raw material basis production of our agricultural products. And therefore, this has not placed a map for the Philippines. Now, you will tell me, what is the significance of consolidators? Kagaya nga ng sabi ni Kadani, I can put 20 small manufacturers in one container or even 50. And that would give them exposure at the very least to the overseas Filipino market, which is, if we don't serve, is being served by Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. These three countries have copied the preferred profile of snacks and condiments that we are producing at a more competitive price. Now, given that situation, that we have these small enterprises being given the exposure through consolidation, another thing that we address is the development of new products for the market. If you go to the supermarkets today, whether here or abroad, in the United States, in the small stores in Europe, even in Japan, or even in Australia, what you will find in the shelves are the same products copying each other. From that granule-based seasoning, you have at least 6 brands. On condiments, you have at least 12 or 15 brands. On the bottle preserves, the nata de coco for halo-halo, you have what? 25 brands. In the United States alone, there are 20 brands. Imagine there is nothing that we have come out when in fact Thailand has come up with canned rambutan. They have come up already with canned nata de coco, which is now, by the way, being private then imported by a large national brand of a seafood product, isn't it? So my point is that if you don't give exposure to our small MSMEs, then there will be no more growth, no more new products coming out, and the Philippines will have no future in the world arena in as far as product development is concerned. We will never draw up. The reason why we have not been able to export canned coconut milk when in fact we don't consume as much is because we have never been competitive in the cost of tin cans, because our importation of tin cans is only 1/10 that of Thailand. And so the main concern is not the cost of coconut, but the main cost of the cans itself, the packaging itself. We can produce good quality, and we're happy that some products have, or some companies have come up with that competitive edge. We are now serving some of the mainstream supermarkets. But when will we have that convergence and congruence for us to be able to tap our potential? We have, I'll tell you one thing that sells very well in the export market is coconut chips produced in Thailand. We don't consume that much coconut, but we don't produce also that much coconut chips. Our coconut chips flavored that or seasoned is only very small. But the production in Thailand goes in the hundreds of containers just for one major brand buyer in Europe and America. So why can't we, when in fact we as a people don't consume that much coconut? Because our MSMEs are limited to product exposure, to R&D, to product development. Look at our condiments. We have not also gone as far as going into the spicy side, when in fact, what is the lesson of Korea catching up with Japan? Korea learned to copy properly what Japan was doing very well in the 70s and the 80s. And therefore, you find the Koreans leading now in the 90s, 2000s up to today. It's the same with the film industry and the television industry, isn't it? So my point is, consolidation brings forth not only revenues, the dollars that we need, but we give employment. We guarantee that employment for a lot of people. As I've mentioned, we are now roughly about $1.5 billion in total and employ more than 200,000 workers directly, together with our casual workers, not to mention the extension of the support services that we employ. So my point is, I would like to ask government to please create policies that will help and facilitate exports. One thing that is challenging us today is the value-added tax imposed by the CREATE law on indirect exports. So what happens is that since our peso has devaluated at about 20% vis-a-vis the dollar, and you added 12%, and the cost of imported inputs is about 70%, you will find the Philippine products at least 25% more expensive than its neighboring countries. So we cannot produce some products which we can at the same price level because we are imposed on this with these regulations. So there's no way for, and then the government just anyway gives you a window for refund. Let me remind you that because we are in the thick of discussion with this during the pandemic in 2021 on the BIR revenue 2020, Memorandum Order 9-2021, they gave a window for refund. The problem is they threw at us a 10-page refund procedure. So if you have any issues, a love letter from the BIR, you cannot refund. And how can I convince my foreign buyer or my overseas Filipino buyer to say, pay VAT, and then I will try to refund you whenever and if ever at how much I can get? This hampers the total development of our export industry, especially the MSMEs. They really struggle because none of these brands. That's why you see a lot of small producers, be it snacks or condiments, specialty biscuits, candies. They could not compete. Why? Because of the raw material inputs. Sugar, as you might notice today, at least DA has already released the price at about 90 pesos. So it will come out to about 95 pesos for the producers and for the retail market. So how much will our product cost when all our products are sugar laden? Our packaging is not available. That's why in comparison to our neighboring countries, all of our products from bagoong to preserves to coconut jam and what else is in that bottle, even peanuts and coconut sugar are using the same bottles. And therefore, no character for it to get to the mainstream market, which has a potential. If we export in bulk and become just an ingredient, we get less. If we export under private label, we get less. And a lot of products now, because of the challenges of the pandemic and the inflation and the geopolitical order now in the world, is bringing down to a commodity level of pricing for most of our high-value products. A year back, you can still sell coconut water at $1.10 per liter. Now, the major brands, which I will not mention, worldwide, are asking for 70 cents. Imagine what would be left to our producers who have invested a lot into certification, into production, into facilities, and what would be left to the farmer. So, I enjoin you to join the consolidator's cause in reaching out to government to create programs not only on raw material supply, packaging, support for promotions, but as well as the imposition or the elimination of the imposition of 12% VAT on indirect exports. Because none of these small producers can go to the market if we will be charged at 12%. It is not going to my pocket. It is not going to the farmer's pocket, nor the producer's market, but it will create a price level which the market will not be able to accept anymore. And thus, in a matter of a few more months, with the challenge of the inflation and recession abroad, we will see a lot more MSMEs closing shop. This is the sad plight. So, much as the DOF has confirmed that there was an oversight on the imposition of VAT on indirect exports, to do that corrective legislation with Congress will take another 2 years. And so the only avenue that the consolidators and the indirect exporters, from handicrafts to food to personal care, is if we will be included by the board of the BOI, the Board of Investments, in its Strategic Investments Priority Plan for 2023, thus relegating the consolidators group and indirect exporters to become VAT-free upon purchase of these goods from the MSMEs. Now, let me share to you that the consolidators, aside from just purely on a trading basis, because sometimes the government does not appreciate the trading basis position of the consolidators, let me enumerate to you and exemplify to you that as consolidators, We spend on the marketing, the compliance, the documentation, certification, promotions of all of these MSMEs. We help them design better labels. We spend for their shipment cost. We travel for them just to push the product that we believe would have a potential either on the mainstream or the Filipino markets abroad. If you go to Saudi Arabia, all the callo removers, the callus skin removers are made in the Philippines under a private label. But why does it not grow so much? Because it does not have the support. Now the buyers have said, Tom, we will stop buying these callus removers from the Philippines because Thailand is offering it at a much cheaper price. Why is it that the sense of one famous guy cannot now go to and open new markets? Because that famous scent guy started with consolidators. And now if he sells to us, he has to add 12% VAT. So how will you open Africa? How will you open Eastern Europe, Central Asia, which are new markets for us, or even India for this matter, which has potential for niche Filipino products because of our shared profile of products and taste that could not be addressed by the government? When have we started exporting? Why do we not understand it until today? So for me, I really put forward this question to government and say, will you really be, is MSMEs really at the forefront of your agenda and the development of the industries? Or are we saying we are just doing band-aid solutions and banner programs to say that we are busy doing something for our government, for our people, and for our MSMEs? The large corporations can definitely afford it. But even them, they are suffering now because these large corporations cannot also go to new markets without the trial orders that are coursed through consolidators like me. And then when you say agricultural products, Mr. Doy Salakop is witness to this. Somehow our saba, mango, calamansi, fresh products are being exported through consolidators in big containers going as far as the Middle East to Saudi Arabia, Libya, and Lebanon. But now, how can you support that when in fact we would have to be added certain VAT if there is a little processing involved? So, gentlemen and ladies, my point is, you do not have to look far because Mondenisin, Century Pacific, Oishi have all transferred their, San Miguel have all transferred their production outside of the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia. And let me remind you what happened in the 90s. In the 90s, if you go to the Middle East, you will see the logo of Silver Swan. And I will say this, I will mention the brand because at that time, the original owner of Silver Swan had an issue with a Middle Eastern buyer that they copied the logo and had it produced in Thailand. Now, because of this discouraging situation for exporters, some of our exporter members and some of the other exporter traders are going to Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia because it will be far easier for to have the nata de coco, the bagoong, the snacks, the fish cracker that we like, the pancit canton, the pancit beef, produced out of all of these countries without the necessity of adding VAT. So one member of mine already opened shop in Singapore, the other one opened in Thailand, another one's opening in Vietnam, another one is transferring to Myanmar. I mean, look at dried mangoes. Our dear Mr. Justinoy of Pro Food International has already opened a larger facility in Myanmar. Or Cambodia rather. Why? The ease of doing business, the cost of raw materials, the support from the government is there in Cambodia. So whether you are a large agricultural producer or a personal care manufacturer, just like the scent guy or somebody who does whitening, how can they grow? You know that whitening soap, we had a Japanese look of the packaging has a potential of going to China. But simply because the development of that brand has to course through guys like us. Now the Chinese said, sorry, your price is very expensive. You have, because manufacturer has to add VAT. And the Chinese people said, we would like to try first how we will move because we will be spending a lot of money developing the brand. So whether it is certification, whether it is compliance, we are all part of the whole mammoth of issues that are being considered for exports by the MSMEs and even the large multinationals. That granule seasoning, which you put on anything, is produced by a large multinational. And largely, that is produced out of where? Out of China, repacked in the Philippines. Now, that granule is being produced directly by Vietnam and China on a similar look, being exported to the countries that we export it to. So how many more industries are we prepared to lose? We lost the national brand of coffee of a multinational to an Indonesian company. We were one of the largest nata de coco producers in 93 and 94. But the bottled drink with flavor that you have is coming from Thailand. And we are importing 400 something containers a month. So why is it that the Philippines cannot compete and produce the same? Cost of sugar, cost of packaging is higher in the Philippines. And all other attendant costs of doing business makes it more complicated and difficult and costly. So I would like to say, the port issues, we were discussing the supply chain. DTI actually organized, I did not know that the DTI has a supply chain and logistics management division reporting directly to the office of the secretary. And when the lead person of the brown bag committee discussing the issues brought it up to us based on a 2-day notice, we learned that all of the solutions that they were discussing on the 5th or the 4th brown bag meeting were all band-aid solutions to the issues of the logistics and supply chain. Whether it be the issues on the container yard, the trackers, the BOC computer, the overtime and under-the-table pay for e-track customs guards guarding all of the imported raw materials and packaging. I mean, it could be solved in one sitting if only all of the agencies will define, all the issues with each agency will be defined. But yet on the 4th meeting, we did not have it. So hence, ETI again organized a 5th meeting, out of which we did not find the notes on the 4th meeting addressed on the 5th meeting. So how many times will we look like busy? Just like, I think Mr. Doy Salohop and I have sat on the Exporters Week many, many years now. And as one of the more openly spoken exporters, I've said every year, we have the same issues except that the panelists are just different. But the issues have remained the same. The people who were moderating have already left the DTI, but yet the issues remain to be the same. So when are we gonna act? And the private sector says we should organize a public-private monitoring, just like what Ka Ernie is saying. Kasi kung hindi, everything just repeats itself. And we will say, oh, I cannot address this, I cannot do that. And just like what Ka Dani says, now that all of the money is with the LGUs, we were trying to help one LGU in Central Visayas. And the mayor was really, really very passionate about helping their MSMEs. He said, I will have a project for this, have a project for that. And he said, I even, just like BBM, he appointed himself as the municipal agricultural officer so that there will be forceful implementation and work on the programs. after I gathered the consultants and created the team who will manage the projects, they did not have a proper understanding of how to develop the agricultural what do you call this chain to produce the products that were exportable. To think that they would have very good agricultural plants for cassava, corn, banana, peanuts, cacao, and turmeric.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I hope I was able to raise to you enough issues, and maybe Mr. Pamintuan can add on more to the supply chain.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. I'm pretty sure in eye-openers na minention ni Tom, let's discuss that later in their interaction with media. But truly, it shows the sad state of Philippine agricultural exports, and let's try to work on some possible solutions at that. Before I continue and introduce the next speaker, I'd like to acknowledge our friends from media, Mr. Carlo Mateo and Carlos Peña from GMA DZBB. And then Juan Alimurog and Eli Saludar from DZXL 558. Those online are as follows: guests from Zoom, Edwin Seymour, CTU, Industrial Polymers Colloids, Elaine Alfonso. We have our director from PCAFI, Mr. Edwin Chen, and our rice expert, a colleague of mine when we were in the Department of Agriculture, si Dr. Art Salazar. Welcome to our PCAFI-han, gentlemen. So, nakakalungkot yung statements na ibininiyag ni Mr. Tom Menina, but those are the realities. Tama po yun, no? When I was in the DA, ang favorite export commodities namin, tawag namin tropical salad. Banana, pineapple, papaya. Tapos may seaweed, may shrimp. 25 years today, ganun pa rin ho. Kaya yung sinasabi nga ni Tom, we need to develop new commodities and support those who are into it. But to continue our discussion on part 2, we now work on the supply chain, logistics components. Ito naman yung how to bring those commodities to the end markets. Let's listen to the president of the Bayside Terminal and Transportation Services Incorporated. Please welcome Mr. Rene Pamintuan.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Ating mga officers dito, binabati ko din ng good morning. Ang ating pong agriculture in the Philippines ay based on 1950s na existence. Magmula noong 1950s hanggang ngayon, hindi pa nagbabago ang ating agriculture. Bakit ko sinabi yan? Madali lang yung makita kung bakit totoo yan. Una, nagbibilad pa rin ba ng grains ang ating mga farmers sa roadside, sa basketball courts? Number 2, we continue to till the soil using carabaos. Okay, di ba? So kung yung lolo ko in the 1950s was doing that, at yung mga farmers ngayon are still doing the same thing by now, di walang pinagbago, di ba? Okay. So ang tanong, bakit walang pinagbago? Isa sa mga issues na hindi rin nagbabago, yung issue ng perishability and spoilage. Yung perishability and spoilage, ever since na nagkaroon ng farming, yan yung number 1 problem. Sinosolve ba ng gobyerno natin yung problema ng perishability and spoilage? Hindi. Bakit? Wala namang cold chain . Alam nyo ba kung bakit napakalakas ng imports sa Pilipinas? Kasi lahat ng cold chain facilities are concentrated in the demand side, which is Metro Manila. Nandito silang lahat. Bakit? Kasi ang importation is by the Port of Manila. So therefore, pagdating nila dito, kailangan may sasalo agad sa kanila at i-distribute sila sa cold chain facilities. Ngayon, ang tanong, Bakit demand side lang ang sinosolve ng gobyerno? Bakit hindi nila sinosolve yung supply side? Saan ba ang supply side? Nandoon sa mga probinsya, sa rural areas. So if you did not put the cold chain facilities there outside, you are not solving the supply side and production side, isn't it? You're not doing it. Okay? It's a huge elephant in the room, pero hindi nila masolve-solve. Bakit ganon? Exports cannot be developed without surplus production. Kung wala kang cold chain doon sa probinsya, sa rural production, the perishability and spoilage problem remains. It is the biggest issue and problem of everybody. Lahat ng farmers, lahat ng fishermen, yun ang number one problem nila, yung spoilage and perishability. The prices of your produce every hour goes down, di ba? Bakit? Kasi hindi mo siya ma-preserve eh. Do you know that out of 7,600 islands in the entire country, there are very, very few ice-making machines provided to the fishermen. So lahat ng catch nila, this is the reason why magaling tayo sa tuyo, sa bulad, okay? At sa, daing at kung ano-ano pa. Bakit? Kasi yun lang ang kayang gawin ng mga fishermen natin. Okay, yun namang mga farmers natin, magtatanim ng surplus, for example, nag-harvest ng sobra sa kamatis. Anong gagawin nila sa kamatis? Pinagalitan pa nga sila ng DA nung isang araw. Ba't kayo nagpo-produce na sobra-sobra? Wala na pala kayong market. Sabi ko, napakatanga yata nun. They don't even know why and wherefore they exist. Diba? Saan ka ba? Saan ka ba nakalagay sa scheme of things, diba? Kung hindi mo man lang naintindihan yon at pinagalitan mo pa yung pobreng mama na nagpo-produce ng surplus para supposedly lumaki yung kita niya, pinagalitan mo pa. Di ba? Di kita pakalaking katangahan noon, hindi ba? So, yan yung isang masakit na sitwasyon natin, ano? Isa pa. So, hindi tayo makakapag-produce ng exports, idudugtong ko sa pinag-uusapan natin, hindi tayo makakapag-export kung wala tayong surplus. Di ba? Wala ka na nga surplus, kulang nga sa pagkain ng domestic, mag-e-export ka pa. Hindi nga mangyayari. In short, ang gobyerno natin sa Pilipinas, hindi totoo na nagtatrabaho sila para sa export. There is no such thing. Everything, katulad ng sabi ni Tom, is just to make it appear that they are busy doing things. Diba? Hindi totoo yun. Okay, example na lang ha. Ito, tatanong ko sa inyo ha. Meron ba kayong narinig na programa ng DA na tinatawag na National Agriculture Export Program? Meron ba kayong narinig na ganon? Wala. Kung wala kang National Agri-Export Program, edi wala kang budget doon. Kung wala kang budget doon, edi wala kang managers. Kung wala kang managers, walang pupuntahan ito, walang policy, walang direction, walang gabay, nothing. It's all just lip services. Hindi ba? It's all just lip services. So, kung wala ka naman palang ganon, ay ano pinag-uusapan natin? Ang meron tayo, very good tayo sa import program. As a matter of fact, all produce today are imported. Yeah. Do you know that even Rufina patis is imported? Do you know it's being done already in Bangkok, Thailand? I was in the United States. Nagbibisit ako sa mga groceries doon, tinitingnan ko. Kita ko yung Rufina patis. Rufina patis. Pagtingin ko, produce of Bangkok, Thailand. Whatever. If the Thais can sell Rufina patis in the United States, why can't the Philippines sell it in the United States? Diba? You have to ask yourself the question, I opened a glass freezer. Nagulat ako. Do you know what I saw inside? Hito, steamed, cut, vacuum pack, made from Vietnam. Sabi ko, hito? At saka, do you know who buys all of this? The main buyer in the United States are the Filipinos. They are forced to buy the Thai, Vietnamese, Indonesian, Malaysian, even Latin American products because there is nothing coming from the Philippines. There is a huge market there for such tropical products that the Philippines is not enjoying, is not being able to optimize. Sayang, di ba? So kung wala tayong programa pala sa export, eh di ano pa yung pinag-uusapan natin dito? Niloloko lang natin ang sarili natin kasi wala namang National Agri-Export Program. You know, from the 70s until now, there is no such thing as a National Agri-Export Program. I submitted to the DA a concept paper. Sabi ko, let's do, I went to the high value crop of the DA and I posited the query. Sabi ko, meron ba kayong tropical fruit tree plantation strategy? You know, today, planting of trees is a huge issue, di ba? But DA itself does not have a tropical fruit tree plantation strategy. Do you know how much Vietnam earned out of selling tropical fruits? Pinagyayabang nila in 2020, 2020. They earned US $8.5 billion for export of tropical fruits. Why can't we do it? We cannot do it because unang-una, wala naman tayong export program. Pangalawa, wala naman tayong tropical fruit tree plantation strategy. If there is no strategy to plant fruit trees all over the country, despite the DENR's expenditure of billions and billions and billions of pesos, so walang mangyayari sa atin. We are not really aiming for export sa totoo lang. Di ba? Clear ba, no? Di ba? Maliwanag na maliwanag. Hindi naman talaga tayo, puro lang tayo lip service eh. Sa totoo lang, lip service lang. Wala naman talagang programa. Siyempre, yung addition sa problema, yung VAT na yon. So, isa pa yon. Kung may programa tayo sa exports, dapat doon na-filter yon. Di ba? Nakita yung problema na yun at sabi, teka, hihina yung export natin. Okay, isa pa. Meron ba kayong narinig na in any of the departments of government, meron ba kayong narinig na quota or target volumes? Is there such a thing as quota or target volume? Meron ba nagsabi na mag-export tayo ng suha? Example lang, export tayo ng suha, at least 1,000 containers on 1 year. Wala namang ganun eh. Kung wala ka naman palang ganun, wala kang target, wala kang programa, wala kang budget, wala kang management, niloloko lang natin sarili natin. Diba? Hindi totoo yan. Kunwari lang yan. Puro para lang mapag-usapan. Pag napag-usapan, tapos na. The following year, the same problem rolls all over again. And the following year, it rolls all over again. So, wala naman palang mangyayari dyan. Kasi nga, niloloko lang natin sarili natin. Diba? So, ano yung issue natin dito? You know, I was invited to UPLB one day, many years ago. And there they asked me to talk about food and logistics. So because that is my businesses, I gave the talk. Mga 1 hour and a half na talk explaining the whole supply chain, logistics and whatever. After that, there's the room was jam-packed. Siguro mga 300 top students of UPLB and professors. After that, sabi ko, sige, I'm open for questions. Nobody was asking questions. So nagtaka ko, bakit wala nagtatanong? So binaligtad ko yung sitwasyon. Sabi ko, sige, let me ask you the question then. Okay? Is value chain and supply chain part of your curriculum? You know what the answer was? No. So here we are. What then is being taught at the UPLB, College of Agriculture. They're only teaching them about farm operations. In short, if there is a coin, half of the coin lang yung tinuturo sa kanila. Yung other half of the coin from harvest, post-harvest, processing, distribution, marketing, and exports is not part of it. This is the reason why all of the bureaucrats that we have who graduated from the top universities of agriculture in the country cannot develop the value chain and supply chain because they never studied it. So we have a problem in our educational system. We are teaching a 1950s educational agricultural educational system that has remained in the 1950s and has not moved forward. All others that went over here to study whatever it is that we are studying, paglabas nila, nag-aral din sila ng value chain, nag-aral din sila ng supply chain, and then they develop the whole thing. This is the reason why kung bakit hanggang forma lang tayo, hanggang display lang tayo, puro lang tayo forma, no? Just for show. Kunwari, can you just imagine from the time that President BBM sat down as Secretary of Agriculture, what did he say? Value chain, right?
Yes.
From then until now, is there any talk about development of value chain? Did they even call us up? Did they talk about us with supply chain people? Nobody has called us. Nobody has talked to us. So what is happening there? We don't know. We don't know. If we're just going to go back to the old traditional system, we are not solving the problems of agriculture in our country. So value chain is very important, so important that we need to solve that problem. So value chain and supply chain would allow us to process, manufacture, trade, and follow export standards. Ang hindi, binanggit ito ni Tom kanina, pero i-emphasize ko lang, Do you know, you cannot export unless meron kang mga certifications, standard certifications. At ang dami-dami ng mga export standards na yan. Meron yang HACCP, meron yang GMP, meron yang GAP, GMP, HACCP, merong Australian standard, Japan standards, Thai Korean standards, etc., EU standards. How can an ordinary farmer follow that? How can an ordinary farmer export directly to the United States? Whereas the Thai and the Vietnamese farmers are already exporting directly. Why is that? Because they have the value chain. Okay, what is the value chain? I give you a specific, simple standard lang na sitwasyon. Dole and Del Monte have been operating in the country since Del Monte has been here pre-World War II pa, but Dole has been here since after World War II. What is it that they do? Because I grew up in Mindanao, nakikita ko ito, no? When you export the bananas, fresh bananas, they process them through their value chain. Meron silang packing house. There they wash it, they sort it, they measure it, they put it in the carton boxes, they wax it, etc., until it ends up inside the container, and then the container goes to the port. So kung very observant lang itong mga taga-DA natin at saka taga-DTI, what do you need to do? You just copy the best practices of the multinationals and apply it regionally to all the regions of the country. And if you are able to do that, edi yung mga farmers and fishermen in that area will have a toll facility that they can use. But it's not there. So if it is not there, the farmers are two words, unenabled and unempowered. Okay? Tapos anong binigay ng DA sa kanila? Binigyan sila ng bagsakan. Doon sa bagsakan, doon mo i-deliver lahat yung produce mo, doon mo ibebenta. Bumisita ako sa bagsakan. Anong pagkakaiba ng bagsakan doon sa palengke? Wala. So naglalaban pa yung dalawa ngayon. Yung palengke at saka yung bagsakan naglalaban pa. Secondly, they were not taught the right standards to keep. Nakalatag lang sa semento lahat ng produkto. Do you know, I learned one thing. I'm also an exporter. Nag-export ako ng Cavendish bananas and pineapples to Dubai. I went to Dubai and the Arab taught me this. Sabi niya sa akin, Rene, binuksan niya yung pineapple. Okay, check natin ha, sabi niya. Kumuha siya ng isa. Ini-slice niya sa harap ko. Pagka-slice, nagulat ako. Alam mo, may itim-itim yung gitna ng pineapple. Buti na lang, isa lang ang merong ganon. Okay? Hindi lahat. Pero you know what he told me? Rene, sabi niya, sa tinagal-tagal ko sa pag-import ng pineapples, alam mo kung anong problema nito? Sabi niya sa akin. Ano? Sabi niya. Nahulog ito sa lupa. Imagine mo yun, ha? Sabi ko, gaano katagal nahulog sa lupa? Kahit sandali lang yan, basta nahulog yan sa lupa, sabihan mo ang lahat ng mga farmers mo, anything na dumapo sa lupa o sa semento, wag na nilang isama. Dahil masisira lang ang quality mo. Kayo nga lahat dito, hindi nyo alam yan eh. Di ba? Nahulog lang sa lupa, pero tayo nga, nilalagay pa lahat ng pagkain natin sa lupa eh. So ano yung bagsakan na yon? Ginasusan ng gobyerno ng karami-karami milyon-milyones, but they did not level up the standards. So ganun pa rin ang produkto natin. That is the reason why we cannot export. Because our own DA do not understand standards. They do not know how to teach it to the farmers. And therefore, we will never go level up. We will never be able to export because we don't understand. And you need a facility like a packing house or a processing center or even, here goes the gist of what I'm trying to say. Sabi ko, kung po pwede, okay, food terminal systems. During the 1970s, our President Marcos set up the food terminal system in Taguig. Sadly, nabutan siya ng political debacle hanggang sa nawala na lahat. Kalimutan na lahat, di ba? But that is the right system. You know why I realized that is the right system? When I visited Dubai, I went to the Awir market in Dubai, right? No? When I went there, I saw a huge food terminal system nila doon. Every trader is operating his own cold chain facility. Wow! And this is the reason why Dubai catapulted itself to become the principal food supplier of the entire Middle East. They are not producing it, they're only traders. But they all receive it there, they process it there, and then they ship it to Oman, they ship it to Saudi Arabia, they ship it to all the other areas around. We never learn. We don't even know. Our DA doesn't even understand what we're losing. Okay, so ano yung suggestion ko? Because I'm in the supply chain and logistics business and in the shipping business itself, I've been in that for the last 40 years. Ito yung isa-suggest ko sana. Mag-create ng hub and spoke system for food distribution. Every region will have its own regional food terminal. And then Clark, with the huge area that it has right now, Clark will be the national hub. Okay? What does that mean? Clark is near to Subic. So lahat ng imported food to stop all of this smuggling should only be coursed through that area for customs processing and quarantine clearing. Doon lahat sila papasok. Bakit doon? Because it is near Metro Manila, which is the demand side. And then Central Luzon is already booming as well. It is really the right place. And all the regions now will have their own regional food terminals. Ano yung regional food terminal na isa-set up sa mga regions? It will contain practically everything that is needed by the farmers. Gusto niya mag-dry, meron siyang mechanical dryer doon. Gusto niya mag-process, may processing center siya doon. Gusto niya mag-cut, mag-pack, whatever that it needs to be done, bigyan mo siya ng ganun. Offered by the government as a toll service. Magbayad na lang siya ng per kilo or per CBM or whatever. Di ba? He doesn't have to set it up. And then the certification part will be easier because ang isa-certify na lang ng gobyerno yung buong terminal. Anything that does it there, they already are using the certificate of the terminal. O di napadali lahat, di ba? And then everybody who uses the terminal, ipa-PESA zone mo na yon so that everybody who uses it will be VAT certified. I will talk to you later. May solution ako doon sa problema mo. Mamaya. Tayong dalawa mag-usap tayo mamaya.
Let's do minutes.
So yun yung mga dapat nating gagawin. Now, why is this so? Because you know what? Kanina pinag-uusapan ng grupo dito. The problem in the Philippines is system. Systems ang problema and nobody knows how to do a system. We need a food distribution system. We need a food logistics system. Ano yung system? Ano ba yung terminal? Terminal is part of a system. Di ba? May bus terminal. Bakit ka may bus terminal? Para may system. Bakit ka may port and airport? Because those are terminals. It provides efficiency. It provides cost savings. It puts order into everything. Everything is properly done. Hindi tayo ganun eh. Free for all tayo eh. Open license fair tayo eh. Everything is open eh. So if we are not going to do it like that, forget it. We'll just talk. Sabi nga kanina ni Tom eh, ano lang siya eh, ano tayo mo kanina? Yung band-aid solution lang lahat eh. Why is it band-aid solution? Because they don't know how to create systems. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rene Pamintuan. Pangalawang speaker pa lang yan at gising na tayo. Alam niyo ba, Rene, dagdag ko lang, panahon ni Secretary Prosi Alcala, he distributed 130 bagsakans all over the Philippines. I don't know where they are right now, no? But sayang.
Yan ako punta mo yung mga bagsakan na binokis
Ayun.
nila. Ganun pa rin siya, bagsakan pa rin.
Yung sa Benguet,
Lupa, sa lupa nakalagay lahat.
ang laki-laki nung sa Benguet, ha? Sayang. Anyway, sana naman, pag naggawa ng aid memoir ang ating President Danny Fausto, mapakinggan kung sino man ang dapat, anong ahensya ang makabasa nung dapat mangyari. Okay, so that's part 2 of today's 3-speaker series. Ang pangatlong speaker natin ay magkikwento naman. He will discuss digitalization in agriculture and he will slightly touch on the buffer stocking of our premium commodities in the Philippines. No? But before I call him, I'd like to acknowledge our media friends from Balikatan, Mr. Jose Ingles Jr. Welcome, sir, in Syra Marie Diamla, Balikatan. So,
Sorry, sir.
yes, Rene.
For the benefit of the media, meron po akong messenger, Rene Pamintuan. If you message me right now, I will send you this topic, this presentation that I just sent. Okay? Para, sorry, wala akong dalang printed eh. Pero digital na kasi ngayon eh. Hindi na kailangan ng printed eh. Okay?
Sige. Later on naman, we'll have interaction with the 3 speakers para yung detalye, yung mga tanong.
Or you can go to that table mamaya and get the copy.
Okay. So at this point, I'll call on the Chairman Emeritus of PhilMais. Please welcome Mr. Rod Bioco.
Good morning, everyone. My buntag. I'm Rod Bioco from Bukidnon. Many of you perhaps have known me because of PhilMais. No? But first, I would like to express my gratitude and acknowledge some our partners in this event. No? Of course, Danny Fausto, our president of PCAFI, our dear friend Ernie Ordonez of Alianza Agricultura, and we've been partners for more than 15 years now. No? So, and to our partners in DA, DTI, I've seen my good friend Butch Madarang, no? My partner in Bamboo. No? Kabambo ko yan. And of course, Divi Sevillano, kasama ko rin sa Bamboo and Agriculture. To our media friends and to our fellow speakers and to our MC. Good morning, everyone. I would like to touch on the digital transformation. And before I go through my presentation, I would just like to go through some of the basics. So most of us, when we refer to digital transformation, we look at something that is online and it's based on transactions, doing transactions online and asking our government agencies to make many of their services already online. But what we really refer to digital transformation, and this is what we advocated, and we're trying as PhilMA is trying to channel our advocacy through the private sector advisory council of the president. So what you're getting here is actually our version of how our version of what we suggest to how the pronouncement president we would like it to be operationalized. So what we want to have is a system that is measurable, verifiable, and as they wanted also connected. So those are the three basic parameters that we would like to establish. And our initial target is to come up with a universal baseline for agriculture. As you know very well, universal baseline for agri is something that has been the missing link for all these years. There are several attempts of the Department of Agriculture to make that baseline with RSBSA, as you would know, registry system for basic sector of agriculture, which we refer unfortunately as fake registry. So it's not really an attempt to come up with a universal baseline for agriculture. So there's so many controversies behind RSBSA, and we forwarded already our recommendations to scrap RSBSA and come up with evidence-based, data-driven system. So again, it should be measurable, verifiable, and connected. So what we want to suggest, what we've been advocating is a list of farms, starting with our cultivated parcels. So we try to digitize all the cultivated parcels in the Philippines, and then we expand it, including the livestock farm and other infra supports for agri, such as rice mill, feed mill, livestock farms, and etc. And we have to use GIS as the platform, Geographic Information System or Geospatial Information System, so that it can be, again, measurable and verifiable. Diba? So for this to enable this, of course, we have to take advantage of the satellite technology. Specifically, initially, we have like Sentinel-2, which we can have access. It passes through the Philippines every 2 weeks, so we can use it as our monitoring system. And if we overlay some data, especially Pag-asa data, we can actually come up with a basic forecasting, for the annual yields natin especially for the crops. We can also refer to digital transformation later on. Once we have the baseline, so once we have the farm registry, and then we look for the owner of the crop, so that we can have the master list of farmers who are related to the cultivated parcels, to the particular cultivated parcels. We can go into advanced monitoring and forecasting. So using AI and ML. AI is for artificial intelligence, as you know, and machine learning. So what we try to envision, aside from the baselining, the farm registry and the weather forecast, we have to endeavor regular training data for our forecasting models. So meaning itong system natin using satellite na imagery, so nakikita nila kung ano yung stand ng crop and the reflectance or the specific na how do you call this, the color, no, the color of the crop. And based on that, if we feed ground data regularly, no, on specific na mga targeted na areas, you know, for studies, we can start with 2-year na overlay, and then we can automate already with more precision. Together with our farm registry, we can increase the precision of our monitoring and forecasting. So this is what we refer, no, to digital transformation. And this is very important because the private sector advisory council of the president has already advised, no, or endorsed the digitization of our national food balance sheet, no, meaning every month we have an empirical basis, no, to measure how big is our crop, no. So what's the status of our crop, and then when there are calamities and other interventions or events, we can make the appropriate adjustment in the forecast by automating it using really evidence-based and data-driven, no? Unfortunately, if you know very well, you know, the character of our rice and corn outlook of the Department of Agriculture, which is mostly anecdotal, no? So meaning sabi-sabi lang ng mga LGUs and then sabi-sabi lang ng regional field units ng DA, no? So it's not really reliable. There are attempts already, no, like DA has PRISM, as you know, which is designed for rice, and there's an attempt also by PCA to digitize under sa leadership ni General Benji Madrigal, no, going into digital transformation, which is the right direction. So we have to put a lot of emphasis on this, integrate all of this data, no, together with NAMRIA, with DOST, DTI, and all other agencies of the government, Pag-asa, so that we can come up with this national intelligence and come up with our digitized national food balance sheet. So together with our import data, more or less, we can calibrate how much we need to import based on the actual, no, actual situation or actual ground data that we have in our local production. So this is somehow one way to really come up with an empirical basis, no, to create or to do data-driven decision making, no. And I would like to emphasize also that a few days ago, no, the president met PCAFI, and based on the earlier discussions with the president and the formal discussion with the Department of Agriculture, there is already pronouncement by the president to enhance SARAI program, no. SARAI is I think some of you have already are already aware of SARAI, no. SARAI is a smarter approach to reinvigorate agricultural industries, no, of the Philippines, no, developed by DOST, no. It funded a 5-year program, a 7-year program, actually 350 million, which ended 2 years ago, no. So we're going to revive SARAI and enhance it, and hopefully we can even weaponize it as our national intelligence, no, for the national food balance sheet. So okay, so I would try to if you can bear with me, no, I will try to attempt our digitalization program and the pronouncement of the president that he desired, though he wanted our country to establish a 1-month buffer stock, di ba? So which is supposed to be the main role now National Food Authority, no? At the end of the term of our president, 2028, we have a projected population of 122 million. So the challenge now is how to feed another 10 million at the end of the administration. Next slide, please. And I would like to illustrate lang, no, briefly. This is the nature of our crop production, specifically rice and corn. No? So rice and corn is because of rainfall. No? Ang planting natin happens immediately after the start of the rainy season, no? For the start of the crop year. In some areas starting August, April, and the peak is sometime in May, June. And when we harvest, the production curve will look like this, no? It looks like a bell curve. And 75-80% of our production is actually within 6 weeks, no? May mga outliers na who planted earlier, and then meron din mga gustong magtanim later, no? But usually farmers, they don't want to plant earlier because they might not have the rain, or later because you will have all the pests and diseases of your neighbors, di ba? So the challenge here is that during harvest season, it will also look like this, no? So in the 6-week period, you will have the peak of the curve, no? Next slide, please. Yung price curve naman would look like this. No? It's like a sine wave, no? So before the season starts, the prices are high, and then during the season, it goes down, and then after the season, it goes up again, no? But what we want to endeavor is that we don't want high prices before and after the season, and we don't want low prices also during the peak season. We want to straighten the curve, di ba? So yun yung kwan. And this is why it is very important in many countries, their government comes in and buy, di ba, the produce, so that you can flatten the curve. So this is why there is that principle, the number one right of our farmers to guaranteed price. No, so this will basically to flatten that curve. Next slide, please. When you look at the overlay, the downward pressure of prices is actually coinciding with the upward trend of the production curve, no, in the peak season. And this is always been the problem of our farmers. In Philmais, we believe, no, that's why up to now it's very, very difficult, that post-harvest is supposed to be a basic right of our farmers. No? Our farmers should have universal access to harvest. So if private investment doesn't come in, then government has to put up that bridge. No? In most countries, post-harvest is a public good. No? So meaning it is subsidized and it is invested heavily by their governments. Unfortunately, if you look at the budget of the Department of Agriculture, they say we have big budget by 1 billion, 2 billion. But if you look at actually the need of the industry, that's only about 1%, no, of our requirements. So if we establish the universal baseline for agriculture, we will be able to see with definitive numbers the requirements and the investments that we need. So if you only have budget for less than 1%, no, per annum for post-harvest, which should be public na investment, then it will take you more than 100 years before you can modernize your grain sector. So that's why up to now, we still go back to the same problem. Next slide, please. So when you look at national level, Mindanao, Visayas, and Luzon, this is how the seasonality would look like, no, during the first season of the crop year. No? And then the second season is about 4 or 5 months later than this. No? So ang wet season natin actually produces about 6-7 months of our requirements, and our dry season, no, crop produces about 4 months. So ang dry season natin isang kahig, isang tuka lang yon. No? So it's really, we really need to address the wet season because this is where we produce more and there's a lot more pressure on the post-harvest. Next slide, please. So this is, gone pa. This is how, this is the life cycle of our buffering stock. No? Before, ang NFA kasi was designated to by PD4, no? Presidential Decree number 4 to create a buffer stock unlike before na NFA can simply import rice from Vietnam and Thailand March, April, May, no? So that they will have about 30-day na buffer stock July, August so that yung mga traders, mga importers natin, hindi sila makapagsamantala, no? Kasi may hawak na buffer stock ang government. So especially during July, August, September. And a lot of speculation, whether it's corn or sibuyas or rice, it happens during that lean season. Now, so this is the digital transformation. Di lang klaro dyan, basically we come up with the digitized borders of each cultivated parcels using GIS. Next slide, please. This is the farm registry properly done, like in the barangay in Malaybalay, wherein we digitized all our parcels. Malaybalay is one of the few cities, LGUs in the Philippines that have digitized all their cultivated parcels. No? And with Saray, we're going into this. No? So Saray, we're going to improve Saray and institutionalize it as pronounced by the President. And we're proposing to come up with a national integrated monitoring and forecasting of agriculture, no? Or NIMFA, no? Project NIMFA. And it should be something that is legislated so that it will have its yearly budget. Next, please. Sorry. What we wanted to endeavor in that digitization, the Saray program or NIMFA will create the registry of all the cultivated parcels, and we ask our local government units to profile each parcel, and because that's where most of the cost will come in, no? In the enumeration, and interview the crop owner regardless of his tenurial rights. No, he may be the owner or the leaseor or the squatter. So regardless, but we want to profile the crop owner. Now, this is the life cycle of our crop estimation, as I've said, using mainly our digital transformation platform, so that we will be able to update our national food balance sheet. Next slide, please. Yeah. I will go quickly. This is rice and corn baseline. As I mentioned earlier, as a pronouncement of the President, we calculated how big is our baseline. No? So this is our local supply. And then for our 1 month buffer stock, it will compose about 3 million metric tons. No? So the magnitude of storing 3 million metric tons is something that we need to undertake. Now, to do that, next slide is to do that. Next slide. Yung sinabi nila kanina na hub and spoke, no? So we want to what we call a daughter station. Something wrong with the slides, sorry. But we will come up with Okay, sorry. So for us, we proposed through PSAC, to the president, uh, what we mean by 3 million, what we mean by 1 month buffer stock is about 3 million metric tons, no? And this 3 million metric tons, as I've shown in the life cycle, has to be accumulated during the wet season. Now, because of RTL, rice tarification law, NFA cannot import. So our buffer stock has to be coming from local production. And the only time that we will be able to raise that buffer stock is during the seasonal surplus during the wet season. Dry it properly, store it properly in modern systems, and store it for almost 1 year. No? So not using flat warehouse of NFA, because if you do flat warehouse, you can only store for 6 months. So with proper systems, we can store even up to 3 years. No? Next slide, please. So when you look at the supply chain, as yung sinabi kanina, just go over it. The problem with post-harvest is it's the least desirable link in the value chain. So nobody is going to invest in post-harvest. No? So if you have 100 million pesos, why would you put in a post-harvest when you can invest in feed mill? Diba? But in many countries, especially like the US, they call post-harvest as the origination business because a lot of their industries originate from the post-harvest. Diba? You cannot do a lot of businesses or industries if you do not have post-harvest in your value chain. Next slide, please. So the hub and spoke, this is how we will look at the implementation of the national buffer stock. We have to divide it into pieces, so that we can work out more efficiently. So if we distribute it properly, so we will have 30 service contracts distributed throughout the country, but concentrated, especially in areas where there is big production. So this is how it would look like. Go around, please. Slides. The slide. Okay. So it's a hub and spoke, no? And each facility we refer to as mother and daughter, no? In the next slide, please. So this is the mother and daughter. So for every mother, she should be supporting 10 daughter stations, no? And the magnitude of creating the infrastructure of this would cost about $2.7 billion, no? So this is way beyond the thinking of our people. No, the whole program. This is through PPP. So as also pronounced by the president, and we're using the Adani model of India of coming up with the modernization of their agri-systems. No, Adani is the PPP system of partnership of India between the private sector and the National Food Corporation of India, which is their counterpart of NFA. Next slide, please. So this is how it would look like. The mother station, which would cost about 2 billion. There's a similar model of this. There's one existing in the Philippines. Then the daughter station, next slide, please, which is about a cost of 300 million and a service contract of 5,000 metric tons. No? There are few already available in the Philippines, so they can start with a brownfield program with our government. Next slide, please. So this is how it would look like in the map. No, if you look at the mother and daughter station. So next slide, please. And next slide. Once the infrastructure are already in place, then we can come up with a commodity exchange system, no? Especially during the dry season, wherein the farmers can swap their incoming production. We can use NIMFA to monitor those who are going to participate in this. Kung sino yung mag-fill up ng silos, we will give them special na ayuda on top of the regular ayuda so that we can make sure that we can fill up the silos. So once the infrastructure is in place and the grains are in store, then we can do many things. So this is our philosophy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rod Bioco. It matches with the previous
Speakers.
point raised by Rene Pamintuan. But of course, your program is on rice and corn, right?
Yeah, starting with rice and
Oh,
corn
okay.
first. Because rice and corn is rice and corn. We start with rice and corn because those are our staple crops, and more than 60% of our land area for agriculture is devoted to rice and corn.
Okay.
And our rice farmers are also corn farmers, no? Yeah. So change, no? And then our rice and corn farmers are also the main producers of our vegetable crops, no? Like
Okay.
sibuyas and other things. no? So
After harvest, no?
if we can, our philosophy is that we can resolve the post-harvest issues, because post-harvest is not supposed to be the responsibility of our farmers. No, it's a specific chain in the value chain. No, and it has to be at the proper scale. No, hindi yung tingi-tingi. And once he resolve his post-harvest, then he can think about and plan for other crops. No. And we have to take advantage of that because our farmers are really, really good. No, it's just that he gets stuck every time, no, in that vicious cycle because of the lack of post-harvest. Like we've seen with Typhoon Karding, no, prices went down because everybody wanted to harvest at the same time. So even if there is a intervention price of NFA, which has no capacity to dry, and most farmers would prefer to sell sariwa, no, from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. So it's misdirected na program, no capacity program. So that's why prices are still falling down during the critical period, as I've illustrated.
Okay. So, well, we had three interesting topics just this morning. I now will open the floor for queries from our media partners. Operator, can you also show the online queries? I'm sure maraming nag-i-inspire na magtanong doon sa three interesting topics natin. Okay, I'll open the floor. Dito muna tayo sa live studio natin. Madam. No, let's she raised her hand first. Sige. Juvie. Ma'am, sandali lang for recording purposes.
Yes, good morning everyone. Alam niyo po, very interesting talaga yung pick ninyo kasi farmer po ang pamilya ko from Bulacan. Disappointed po ako sa gobyerno ngayon dahil po sa sinabi ni Mr. Pamintuan. Masama yung loob ko. Ang dami pa ng pagkukulang. Pero ang tingin ko dyan, ang mali hindi presidente, kundi yung advisor. Paano department I'm talking about the department alone. Gusto ko lang pong malaman kasi kailangan i-troubleshoot natin eh. Tulungan natin ang gobyerno, di ba? Yun po yung yun po yung advocacy ng grupo ninyo. Since na Sir Pamintuan, kayo po ang pinaka sa piling ko drastic magsalita eh. Kasi sinabi mo
Ma'am,
Sir.
hindi ho Percy ang nickname niya. Sige po.
Apo, hindi ho, Juby de Guzman lang po ako, DWBL. Ang sa akin lang sa Pamintuan, ano po ang pinaka-best way? Kasi ang kailangan natin ngayon solusyon eh. Ano po yung number one solution na unang-unang dapat gawin ng Department of Agriculture since masakit ho sa kalooban natin na malaman ang katotohanan mula po sa inyo?
Yung nabanggit ko kanina, unang-una, kailangan gumawa muna ng programa. The National Agri-Export Program. After you created that, so kakargahan mo na ng tao yan, may budget ka na, pag-uusapan na nila yan sa baba, mabubuo yung mga plano. Okay,
Opo.
katulad nung pinag-uusapan natin food terminals. That is part of that.
Opo.
Hindi mo you cannot build the food terminals without first developing the program. Okay, so pag ginawa mo na yung program, ngayon, paano naman gagawin yung food terminal? Ayan,
Opo.
you know what? Because of the Mandanas doctrine, di ba? Nanalo na si Mandanas sa the money is going to the LGUs. So the LGUs now, sinabi ko na nga sa mga mayor sa Mindanao, sabi ko sa kanila, simpleng-simple lang ito eh. hindi naman labag sa batas na mag-develop kayo ng ordinance ninyo declaring a certain portion of land here as a municipal or city or even provincial food terminal.
Opo.
All you need to do, sabi ko, is just set it up, put it in motion, create a budget for horizontal development, power, water distribution, etc., etc. And then you give us a copy of the ordinance, and we will go around knocking on doors of all the big companies and tell them, you can now come in because there is already an ordinance. We don't even need to bring it to Congress. We don't even need to bring it all over the place.
Opo.
The locals, the LGUs, can do it at their own level. Wala namang masama doon. Meron bang nagbabawal sa batas na hindi pwedeng magtayo ng ordinary food terminal yung mga LGUs? Wala.
Opo.
So they can do it already at their level. They don't even need to wait for the national government or DA to do it for them.
Opo.
Now, what is the scheme? It's PPP. Di ba? The local government will set up the land, and then the investors will come in and develop a certain portion of it by themselves at their own expense, at their own cost.
Opo.
Anong gagawin ng LGU ngayon? Ipa-declare niya na peso zone yun.
Okay.
Okay? So,
Sir,
mag-take
yes.
off na ngayon yung pinag-uusapan natin na yan.
Apo. Alam ko po, marami pa ho kayong alam, kaya kukunin namin kayo. Mamaya ho, Sir, Mr. Medina, pasensya na Sir Danny ha, last na lang. Alam ko naman si Sir Danny, presidente yan, lahat talaga na mabuti, alam niya. Okay, Mr. Medina, masakit din yung sinabi mo, real talk ka talaga. Kasi una-una, parang wala na tayong muka no, sa ibang bansa. Ang nangyari, pinagkaloob natin yung blessing supposedly sa atin. Kasi lahat talaga na magagaling nandito sa atin actually. Sir Medina, sa dami po ng pagkukulang ng Pilipinas, ng ating bansa, kagaya ng export sinasabi po ninyo, ano po ba yung pinaka-number 1 na naisip ninyo para immediately ma-implement ng bansang ito? Siguro maging isa na rin ako sa magpapadala ng input tungkol dun sa pagkukulang na yon na mas mapapadali ang solusyon.
Itong the past few months that I have been invited to different fora, no? Ang sinasabi ko lang, I have several keywords. Number 1 is convergence and congruence. Kasi talagang yun ang nawawala. Number 3 is passion. Kasi if you look at the way the Thais, the Vietnamese, especially the Koreans, di ba? Mas magaling bang artista ang Koreano kaysa sa atin? Kulang ba ang drama natin sa buhay kumpara sa Koreano? Hindi. Pero sa pamangking kong direktor, na apo ni Avellana, sabi ko kay Ike, Ike, anong pagkukulang natin? Sabi niya, Tito, kulang tayo ng passion, kulang tayo ng dedication because the Koreans do it for years bago ilabas ang artista. Kaya yung sinasabi pinag-usapan namin ni Karen kanina, sinasabi niya, yung biblical Joseph, di ba? 7 years ang kanyang buffer. Sa atin, 1 month. So ang sabi ko rin is that if we only prepare and we have that passion to win as a country and our government would have that vision and establish that system, panalo tayo eh. Kaya lang ang problema kasi sa atin, our understanding and our way of doing things is haphazard and normally banner-ridden. Ibig sabihin, pag ako nakaupo, I have to name this. Sarah, bukas si Pamela, sa susunod si Lorna. So ang point ko is, it doesn't get to where it should be because you just change the banners. That's what I was telling Rene kanina. Sabi ko, alam mo ang kailangan is all appointed officials should have somebody under them that should stay and would have a continuity of good programs para may mangyari. Otherwise, when Doy Salakop left, then nawala na yung ibang magandang program ni Doy Salakop sa DA. So, ang nangyayari, somebody now will create his own with no proper understanding. So, I would say, siguro, bago mo talaga, kung ako yung tatakbong presidente sa 2028, ngayon pa lang, magsasabi, of course, I don't have any interest, no? Ang sinasabi ko lang is that that president, whoever that person is, has to prepare his team now, not later, when he decides to run, no? At kung yung mga partido naman may decision na, oh, would like to position somebody, then whether they are municipal, provincial, or national officials, they should prepare them with the proper understanding, which is the case nung sinasabi ni Rene na now the power and the money is in the hands of the LGUs. Papaano kung yung mayor na umupo, walang walang alam, hindi nakakaintindi about how to do business and how to attend to agriculture or to exports. So para sa akin, those three keywords will deliver us. Beyond that, wala na eh. Basta passionate ka, tapos alam mo, nag-uusap-usap tayo, hindi yung ang gagawin ni Kadani iba sa akin, pero gusto namin parehas marating namin. Kumbaga, the left and the right are going different directions instead of just moving on one direction. Yun ang nangyayari sa atin eh, di ba? So, wala eh. Wala rin si Marisol eh. Hindi ba? Wala
Okay.
rin, hindi pwede talaga eh. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you. May I call on Sheena now?
Yes, sir. Sir, kung sino na lang po pwedeng sumagot. Kasi ngayon po, inilabas ng PSA na based po sa figure sila, 7.7, bumilis po yung inflation para naman po sa buwan po siya ng Oktubre. Ano pong epekto nito sa industriya ninyo, sir? Lalo't based sa projection nila, mas tataas pa sa mga susunod na buwan o di susunod na taon dahil po sa bagyong Paeng. Especially, sir, mag-holiday season na po.
Well, I may I address that, and perhaps Rene will add to it, no? Of course, number one, yung raw materials mo will increase. Of course, our capacity to purchase, yung mga low-income farmers natin, especially, we have 25% of our people employed in the agriculture sector, where we are contributing less than 10% of the GDP. That means yung productivity ng labor natin wala. So we need that, so therefore, and production is not increasing, meaning bababa ang income ng mga tao, walang pambili. At tumataas ang presyo na sinabi mo because of the prices, then hindi sila makabibili ng dating nabibili nila. And if you're talking about exports, we cannot export competitively because our raw materials are high. Especially, you talk about fertilizer, yung tin cans, packaging, and so on, fuel. Hindi na natin sasama yung value-added tax na nagpataas. In addition, for the depreciation of the peso, 70% of which of our raw materials in export are coming from imported products. So, mataas ngayon ang presyo ng imported products. So lahat-lahat yan kasama, no? And therefore, there is a need really to increase the demand, the supply and bring down the demand in the local market. And then, para mas maraming affordable, we need to increase our income of the farmers, which is employing, 11.4 million of our people. From the 1.7 in 2020, now we are 11.4 million as of June of 2022. Na walang capacity. Marami, tingnan mo yung underemployment. Yan ang problema. Hindi na makabibili ang tao sa dati nilang binibili. Might some more richer guys like Ernie perhaps and Tom can buy. But paano yung talagang general people in the countryside, yung masa? Yun ang target natin. So that's the effect. Inflation really will kill us. It will slow down. So therefore, the BSP now is forced to siphon money from the market. So what is the effect? Economic activity will slow down. You slow down the economic activity, you slow down production, you bring down income. So anong solusyon? Export. That's why this is our topic today. That is the key. Export, unlimited ang market natin sa export. Buong mundo ang ating market, not like a few domestic, low-income domestic market. Pag nag-increase tayo na export, i-increase ang productivity, i-increase ang income ng tao. Kaya yun ang pinag-uusapan natin, Sheena. I hope that answered your question.
Rene.
Three issues yun eh. Volume, productivity, efficiency. Okay. May volume ka, di mas mura kasi mas may volume ka eh. Productivity, magaling ka mag-produce ng kung ano-ano, di your absorptive capacity is high, di ba? Efficiency, you can bring down your expenses. So those three items, those three keywords are very important. Bakit ba mas mura ang imported kesa sa domestic? Kasi sa imported na-reach na nila yung peak production nila. When I was studying MBA, tinuro sa amin yan eh. Yung isang factory, pag nag-overproduce ka, yung excess, hindi na nila binibilang yon kasi na-cover na nila yung cost ng manufacturing nila doon sa regular volume nila. So yung surplus, whether you sell it for 1 peso each lang, kumikita pa rin sila kasi excess na yun eh. That is the reason why pag in-export nila yun sa Pilipinas at binenta nila sa atin ng murang-mura, kumikita pa rin sila. Kaya ba natin gawin yun? Hindi. Bakit? Wala nga tayong surplus eh. Diba? The biblical Joseph is producing for 7 years ahead of time. Sa Pilipinas, 1 month lang. Okay? O 7 days lang. Or 1 day nga lang eh. Pagagalitan ka pa ng DA eh. Sasabihin niya, ba't ka nag-produce ng sobrang kamatis? Tapos nagre-reklamo, sobrang bawang. Tapos ngayon nagre-reklamo ka. So, bakit? Kasi hindi na sila makakapag-import. O, di ba? Oh.
Okay, thank you. From Rod Bioco, please respond.
I would like to respond to that based on my experience. No, before I used to plant X number of hectares. I've given 150,000 by my wife to plant, no, to buy my inputs. Now, before I can buy a half truckload of fertilizer. Now I come home with just a pickup, no, of fertilizer. Pick up na lang ang kailangan. I told my wife, this is how much I can afford to buy the fertilizers now. So I have to cut down my planting. So I cannot also do spread out ko yung the fertilizer that I have to the normal na area that I plant. So that's on my part. So but then harvest comes, prices are very high also. And I told my wife, no, I'm making the same income as if I planted the whole thing, no? So, but then, of course, on my side, I'm very happy as a farmer because I don't want to take more risk kasi kalaban ko yung DA, import. Tapos paano ako when fertilizer prices went 100%, 200%, or 3 times more, and including the agrochemicals, no? Nagdo-double din ang cost. So why should I take that risk when my biggest competitor is the government, no? So but then I make good money now, no? But I cannot take the risk. So yung planting intention ko is affected not just by the prices or in the market or the good prices in the market, but also my ability to finance my production. And this is where I actually am very emotional about this, why I'm trying to help again, no, na government come up with policies, no? Because there are news, no, information that we're getting that what's happening on my level as a farmer is what's actually happening on the national level, on the macro level. Our importation of fertilizer has gone down by more than 50%, no? And we're we're trying to use all the shit in the world, no, just to cope with that fertilizer cost. And sadly, ang importation natin ng agrochemicals also went the same, no, went down the same, no. So validating the figures of fertilizer, and we're not hearing all of this from DA. Maybe it's so sensitive. We should not be talking about this, no. We should not be talking. We'll talk about inflation later on. We don't talk about how to tame inflation at its root, no? Kasi mahal eh, 'di ba? Mahirap
Rod, simple computation.
Oh.
Dati normally ilang bags of fertilizer per hectare. Ngayon ilan na lang?
No, dati we need 120-90-90 kasi for NPK, no? So yun yung rule of thumb namin sa farmer. Although 180-90-90 yan, no? Ang ideal kung kausap po si Dr. Salazar. So, but most of us don't want to buy another 3 bags of urea, no? Those extra bags because of leaching and then because of high cost, especially now. So ngayon, we're cutting it down to 6 bags, from 10 bags to 6 bags. And sadly, for example, I have 3 hectares now, maybe I will be planting 2 hectares with reduced level of fertilizer. So a lot of our areas are followed. And that's why we put front and center the digitalization program so that our policymakers, our decision makers will have good data, no, to make their decision. Kasi kung hindi maganda yung data, there's no sense of urgency, no? But then, knowing all of these numbers happening at your level, no, anecdotally at the farmer level, nagkakwentuhan, oy, konti na lang nagtatanim, tataas ang presyo nito. So why should we plant more when we can get the same income, no? But on the national level, it's going to be a serious problem, no? It's not 50%. I was saying, I was talking to some of our friends, 20% decline in fertilizer imports, then we're in the big problem, no? Epic in proportion. 50% down, that's biblical, no? So, we were hoping that lahat ng available, no? Some companies say, before, you need only 1 billion to import, no? Is working capital as a company. Now you need 2.53 billion for the same volume of fertilizer that you're going to import. Maybe they have the money. Ang problema, punong-puno ang mga dealers because farmers are not planting. So our recommendation, whatever there is in the bodega of the distributors and dealers, ipamigay na yan ng gobyerno. Bilhin yan lahat, pamigay na sa farmers. Because if we're not going to do that and farmers will not plant, then we're in a big problem. Now, ang problema, when you look at the rice and corn outlook, everything is very rosy. No? We have a system that is designed to lie. Di ba? So, sino namang regional director ng DA sasabihin na 30% down yung production sa amin? And, this is a monster of a problem. But we're only seeing so far only the tail of the problem. No, sinasabi ko sa kaibigan, we're seeing the tail, which is the sugar na shortage. That's only the tail. Sugar industry is going to go down by 30% in production. How much more corn and rice? No? But we don't want to talk about this also, no? Because the propensity of DA to import, di ba? So we're going to the next meeting actually, and we're going to discuss about this, no? But what we really want is to put all the solutions on the table to help our local producers. We know for a fact all over the world, no, there's a big tendency of food nationalism, di ba? Food patriotism. So dapat sana patriot din tayo as farmers, no? But we cannot afford the 3 times more expensive, no? There's a shortage of 1846. Our sugar farmers now are supposed to start planting. Pero walang 1846. And then 1846 is ammonium phosphate. No? Sabi nila, bumili ka na lang ng monoammonium phosphate or 1620 instead of 1846. No? So, 2,000 plus ng ang 1620. No? So, if I'm going to go, tawag dito, habulin ko yung phosphorus content ng soil ko using 1620, mas mahal pa yung gastos kasi supposedly ang 1846 is only 3,000 plus. No? Eh ngayon, gagamit ako ng 1620. That will cost me relatively the same but on a content basis, but now it will cost me 4,000 plus because there's no 1846. We used to export a lot of 1846 from Philphos, but it was destroyed by Yolanda. Wala namang tulong na binigay ang gobyerno natin para ma-rehabilitate ang Philphos, no? So since Yolanda. So ngayon, we're in that irony, di ba? That we used to export a lot of 1846 to Vietnam. We import the rice, they go back as fertilizer. Ngayon, may mga joke ang mga sugar farmers. ang mahal-mahal na nga ng 1846, no? Mas mahal pa yung fertilizer kaysa sugar. So kahit na 3,000 plus ang sugar, normally it cannot be, na ang sugar prices are cheaper than fertilizer prices for the same 50 kilos. I mean, there's no sense in farming. Sometimes, kung pwede, wag na lang, di ba? Kasi there's no more logic in all of this. No? So, very, very difficult
Okay.
situation.
He'll be available naman after our formal query. Ma'am, and then Belia, and then I'll go online na. Mayroon mga tanong online. Yes. Quickly. Interesting.
Okay. Interesting talaga. Kung kanina sinasabi ni Sir Danny na inflation is killing us. Obviously, sa lahat ng mga pinagsasabi po ninyo ngayong araw na ito, our country is dying. Why? Kasi simple, hindi tayo nagpo-produce na. We are number 1 importers ng mga produkto. Ang problema natin, kapag nagkaroon ng gera sa ibang bansa, ano mangyayari sa atin? Nakasalig tayo sa pag-import lang ng mga produkto. Ako po, sa marami pong nanonood ngayon sa Facebook page ninyo, kung ako, lahat kami dito, I'm sure, mga media na kasama ko, we are also masses. Siguro kayo lang po yung medyo kaya yung mataas na bilihin. Pero kami po, hindi po namin kaya yon. And ang suma total ng mangyayaring ito ng kagutuman ay kaguluhan. Hindi po ba? And I think, kung ako ang presidente at nanonood siya sa atin ngayon, nakikinig, ako ay isang Pilipino, botante po ako. At siguro naman, mukhang isa sa inyo, o siguro lahat na kayo dito sa PCAFI, maging nandyan sa Department of Agriculture. One of you will be the secretary kasi obviously alam nyo kung paano lulusutan o lulunasan yung problema. And I hope po katulad ni Mr. Pamintuan, Mr. Danny, ni Mr. Medina, and of course si Mr. Ordonez and Mr. Bioco, at marami pa po sa inyo, ang expertise po ninyo hindi na matatawaran Ang karanasan nyo napakalalim at napakalawak na. Alam nyo na kung saan po ang solusyon. At kayo ang dapat na nakapwesto sa Department of Agriculture at hindi yung mga makasarili at ganid.
Thank you, thank you. Belia, please. And then, sige, I'll call Andrea.
Ay, sir, kay Sir Medina. Sir, gusto ko lang tanongin kung gaano karami yung ating MSMEs. And then, aside from addressing the issue on 12% VAT, ano pa yung mga concrete steps or actions na dapat gawin ng government to help yung ating mga malilit na exporters?
Sa MSMEs, ang last count na narinig ko sa group ni Mr. Concepcion is nasa 900,000 something ang MSME sa buong Pilipinas, no? Talaga ito from the smallest producer of pastillas to the polvoron makers, at saka marami pang iba, no? Yung mga banana chips na maliliit. Madami yan, and not to mention also yung personal care. Alam niyo naman, maraming gumagawa rin ng mga whitening soap, etc., etc. So these are 900,000 something MSMEs. Out of the 900,000, our group na from a 1 container a month or 3 containers a year volume, we're about 300 or 400 companies doing consolidation, which facilitates exports for these MSMEs. Ngayon, yung sinasabi mong sa VAT, alam mo, we have been exhuming all possible avenues. No? Lumapit na kami kay Congressman Salceda, kay Senator Angara, kay Senate President Subiri, at saka kay Speaker Romualdez. No? And we have brought it also to the attention of the DTI through the EMB, the EDC, sa Export Development Council, at saka sa BOI. Dahil ang aming VAT ay nakarely sa isang batas, sa Create Law, hindi siya mababago until and after Congress really makes a corrective legislation, which will take 2 years in Congress kung i-consider kami. But if Congress believes that dapat mag-export tayo with VAT, wala akong magagawa. Then it will kill a lot of MSMEs and my members who will maybe move to other countries to source and have the products that our overseas Filipinos or the mainstream clients enjoy. So we will just become brand owners, no? Parang ganyan. And pinagdadasal na lang namin, the last avenue is the SIPP of 2023 ng BOI. Kung i-consider ng BOI yung aming petition as a group to become part of the SIPP as service providers, kasi talaga ang service namin sa MSME, sabi ko nga, is hindi lang financing, hindi lang shipping, hindi lang trading, kundi even compliance and certification. Malalim po yung involvement ng export consolidator sa mga enterprises natin na maliliit, no, especially, and even to the big ones, I would suppose, kasi we are a channel to open new markets for the big ones, no. And kung hindi mangyayari yon, then we would expect that there will be more closures, both of MSMEs and of the export sector. So sa darating na December, makakaroon naman ng Exporters Week. Hari nawa, ma-address at makita ng leadership ng gobyerno at saka ng private sector through the PCCI, PhilExport, PhilFoodEx, nandiyan ang aming presidente si Ruben C, na napaka-urgent nitong situation na ito. Kasi we cannot always go around the law. We have to obey and abide by the law. Hindi ba? But if the law is killing us, then we have no option but to close shop. And therefore, this, because, I'll give you a classic example. You think there is somebody who will buy 1 container of chocolate? Wala, di ba? Talagang for consolidation yan. Mamawala yung benta ni chocolate. Hindi ba? So, things like that. Small items like that, or yung iba na hindi nakakapag-export directly na nasa Pampanga or nasa Cebu, di ba? Yung maliliit na dried mangoes producers. Paano kung hindi na sila makapag-indirectly export tapos mamahal? Kasi what happens now is that pag nag-quote kami, dependent kami sa producer. Sasabihin, sir, may VAT yan ha. So pag may VAT na, sasabihin na nung buyer, alam nyo, kahapon lang nag-compare ako ng isang presyo ng sardinas. Dahil nila niya ng VAT, kung ano yung retail price sa supermarket, parehas na kami. Eh di sabihin ng buyer, ba't pa ako bibili sa'yo? Ang problema lang niya sa supermarket, walang certification, saka ibang quality. Hindi ba? So, nangyayari sa mga exports natin, malamang ma-hold, magkaroon tayo ng bad record because what we are going to export are local stocks, hindi export stocks. And there are no documentation. So you are forcing the bad out of the good. Hindi po ba? Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, Andres and Juan, your question, please.
Hello. My question is, kamusta na yung logistics natin? Bumaba na ba yung freight rates? And if there are there problems besetting the exporters related to the freight cost? Thank you.
Yes, madaming problema ang logistics ng bansa natin. We are one of those hit by the world supply chain issues. So ang tagal bago makarating ng mga imports dahil sa problema ng China. If you are aware, China is because of COVID, they closed down Shanghai, they closed down a lot of the cities there in China. But the same thing is happening as well in the United States. Ang problema ng Pilipinas, and this is something that we failed to exploit, we are at the center of the Pacific and the South China Sea. Dapat sana tayo yung shipping center of the whole entire Asia, but we are not. We are not simply because of the omission and lack of direction of our government for the last 50 years. We should have exploited the position of the country, but we did not. So ano nangyari? Nalipat yung mga mother ports sa Shanghai, sa Taiwan, sa Korea, sa iba't ibang lugar, sa Singapore. And so, yung kargamento natin, before it reaches the final destination, US or EU, Europe, magbabayad muna tayo ng feedering cost. So kakarga muna natin sa maliit na barko, ibibiyahe muna nila yan doon sa mother port, and then it will be transferred to another mother vessel. Okay? So ang problema natin ngayon is, that is about $500 to $1,000 additional cost over and above our usual cost. Samantalang yung kalaban natin sa China or sa Taiwan or sa ibang lugar, they don't have that expense kasi nandoon na yung mother vessel sa kanila eh. Directly na sila nagkakarga. Secondly, hindi tayo during the supply chain mess in the entire world, you know what happened? Yung willing na magbayad ng premium freight, yun ang ikinakarga ng shipping line. So halimbawa, sasabihin nung shipper sa China, sige, magdadagdag ako ng $1,000, ikarga mo lang yung 40-footer container ko. Mauuna yon. Yung container natin, matutulog muna dun sa Shanghai CY Container Yard. So that means it will probably arrive after 6 months in the United States. So you could just imagine the issues, no? So anong solusyon sana dapat diyan? Pinabayaan ng bansa natin ang National Shipping Corporation of the Philippines. In the 80s and 90s, meron tayong Filipino shipping company that is going straight calling United States. Hindi na siya dadaan ng China, hindi na siya dadaan ng Taiwan, hindi na siya dadaan doon. Diretso na siya. At ang may-ari noon, Philippine company. Wala na yan ngayon. Pinabayaan nila, bumagsak yun at wala na. So what is happening right now? So, national security issue. Do you know that almost all of the international foreign shipping lines are foreign owned? Okay? There is not a single Filipino company shipping line na kinakargahan natin. So, anong issue ngayon? Halimbawa na lang sinabi ng China, naggalit ang China sa atin at sinabi niya sa atin, our ports in China will no longer allow the passage of Philippine cargo, import and export. Just doing that alone will collapse the entire Philippine economy in 1 month. They don't even need to send the military attacking us. All they need to do is just curtail that and we will already collapse. So national security issue yan. We don't even know that. A lot of Filipinos don't even know that. Can you just imagine that? If they just say we will curtail, we will stop accepting passage of Philippine cargo, import and export through the Chinese ports. Wala na, patay na tayo. Or kung idadaan naman sa Taiwan o idadaan sa Singapore, because those ports are capitalistic, they will say, may premium na ngayon yung Philippine cargo. Tataasan namin ng $1,000 bawat isa because you can no longer pass through China, dadaan sa amin. So, eventually, ganun pa rin ang problema. Magiging expensive pa rin ang lahat.
Okay.
Did I answer your query?
All right. Basta, these speakers are available after our formal Q&A portion. I'd like to go online, Othel Campos, with her signature pineapple profile. Please come online, Othel. Yeah.
Basahin na lang yung
Tom Medina. May we know how big is the consolidation sector? How much is the combined current value of the industry? Growth prospects for 2023? Expansion challenges the industry is facing. Anyway, in what you can answer here, Mr. Tom Medina.
We believe po that apparently our size now stands between 1.5 to 1.8 billion dollars ang consolidation. No? Not only the food and personal care, but including handicrafts and many other items. No? Pati po yung mga garments na nakakonsolidate ngayon. Ngayon, yung issues namin, of course, you have the world geopolitical issues and the world economy at hand. We are not that optimistic for 2023 simply because of the VAT and also the shipping and logistics issues. If I may add, bukod sa PPA at saka sa trackers at saka sa port issues at saka sa BOC issues, then these are all hampering exports. Kasi as I said, napakaraming bagay na dapat ayusin. That everybody has to really have a holistic view. That's why nga, again, 3 words: passion, convergence, and congruence.
Very inspiring. Okay. I think that ends our online Q&A, and dito naman po sa studio natin, tapos na. No? So, for the closing portion, may I now call on President Danny Fausto.
Thank you, Doy. Maraming salamat sa ating mga speakers, kay Rod Bioco, Tomas Medina, at saka si Rene Pamintuan. Palakpakan po natin silang tatlo. Of course, a good friend, Ernie. This is a very, very productive meeting. I hope that the media could help us send this out to our countrymen. You have heard the problems that was discussed here. And for me personally, as an economist also, this is the mother of all action. If we can solve our export, it goes down the backward linkages will flow with it, together with production, increase income, and so on. And also help our depreciation of the peso in one way, and increase our supply, productivity, and so on. Export, because our market is unlimited. We just have to provide a little extra for our trade missions, exhibits, trade exhibits, and so on. Improve our standards, packaging. You know, in other countries, they have a course in college of packaging. It's a 4-year course, packaging. Meron tayo yata sa Iloilo, but it's not known. Number 1 yung packaging, pagandahan ng itsura, kahit hindi masyadong basta maganda itsura, binibili. So, kamukha ng isang magandang babae, kamukha ng karamihan sa inyo dito, at kundi lahat, no? Pagka maganda itsura, Anyway, I hope that they are all available for personal interviews. I hope you invite them to shed more details. But ang dami pa, no? There's so many other things that we can discuss in detail. But we cannot do it here because of the interest of time, limited time that we are here. And if you can invite them in your studio, in your radio program, or you can interview them for your reporting in the print media. Especially, I'd like to thank those in the virtual. We have the big shots here, si Danessa, si Otel, si Jardine, nandyan. Nandyan si Jed Macapagal. Mga kaibigan natin, maraming salamat sa inyo for gracing us. We will try to have another one, siguro, December, but medyo malabo. Kung hindi, baka this is the last for this year, we will have another for January, every first Friday of the month. We will still discuss it with of course, I'd like to acknowledge our convener, the former Deputy Speaker, Congressman D.B. Sabellano, who owns this place as a Southside sponsor. So, and the technical staff, birthday pa ni Hashim kahapon. Happy birthday, Hashim. And of course, Richard Maglaya, who's our director. Yung ating technical staff and so on. And so, thank you very much. Really, thank you very much. I hope to see you again. Maraming media ngayon, and lunch will be served for those who like to eat lunch here, who would like to catch you. Thank you very much, and a good day to all.
Thank you.
Habang nagpo-photo, sasabihin ko lang sa inyo, no? Ang pinaka-importante, yung VAT. Walang VAT. So if possible, do not forget that in your media. VAT. We want VAT. Taken out. That can be done through an executive decision, right? BOI lang yan, BOI. BOI lang yan. BOI can do it like that.
I need your contact number with you. Hindi ko inabot kayo eh. Okay. Thank you so